Today is Thursday, November 16th, and as we've said many times in these political updates, things have been very busy. As a matter of fact, we're low on chiefs. There are so many meetings going on. We were fortunate enough to talk to Kahnawà Sky Deer, who has a portfolio of membership, and Canada is making some changes to the Indian Act legislation, which is going to have some possibly some huge effects. We sat down and talked to her about some of those changes and what Kahnawake is planning to do.
Well, we were aware of the amendments that were supposed to be made through S3, and that the House and the Senate were going back and forth. They couldn't come to a resolution of how to proceed. We were aware that there was a proposal on the floor of 6(1)(a) all the way, which I guess when women are restored their rights that they had lost for marrying out, they could pass on to their descendants, which, you know, to some degree we don't have an issue with. Part of our problem is, you know, the federal government has been of this attitude about restoring this nation-to-nation relationship, and they unilaterally went again and made a decision and changed the whole course of the way that we thought the federal, I guess, the department was proposing. And again, it's Canada knows best. You know, they're going to dictate to us who our people are, who we need to accept, who's part of our communities. And it goes against everything that we feel the federal government has been talking about. The lack of consultation, free and prior informed consent about this new direction. It came out of left field. So we're still trying to understand what the ramifications are going to be, but to our understanding of the numbers, they're estimating anywhere between 750,000 to 1.2 million new federally registered status Indians. And we have always been of the opinion at our KCR table that Canada needs to get out of the business of making Indians. We know how to make Ungwehues. Ungwehue people, that's what we've been doing for centuries. Stay out of it, you know. And no, I can't think of any other group of people where another nation legislates belonging and identity. It's just unacceptable in 2017. We did have a sectoral membership meeting yesterday. The federal team came here, and I mean, we did nothing but drill them and grill them about how displeased we are. I mean, don't get me wrong, we're happy about some of the women who are going to regain their status, but to what end? And I think that's part of the issue that I have with Deschanel. You know, you can say he's an Abenaki man, but his grandmother was Abenaki. She married out. She had a child who was Satyanagosiha between two cultures. She married out, had Stephen Deschanel. He married out. To what end? When does somebody stop being Ungwehue? You know what I mean? Like, that has that connection, that identity, that tie to the language, the culture. I mean, there has to be some marrying back in and some connection, but if it just keeps going forever and ever, you know, and it's weird, and because in our society, you know, if women carry the clans and that's the trend and it keeps happening, you could have someone who's in essence 0% Ungwehue and still has a clan. At the end of the day, we honestly feel like a lot of First Nations aren't really cognizant of the issues that pertain to the difference between membership and registration. You know, I've always been of the opinion that it should be a bottom-up approach, and that we, on the ground running, should tell Canada, okay, you could register these people because these are our people. They've gone through our process. They meet our criteria. They live here, you know. And part of this unilateral or top-down approach and them dictating to us and continuing to add numbers to our roles, if you want to call it, or, you know, our 070, is that it takes away our right to determine who our people are. And if other First Nations don't see all of this ramification, I mean, like I said, the way it's packaged is more of a woman's issue. You know, no one's going to argue of equal rights for women, but it's all of the other residual effects that become problematic. And again, having Canada dictate to us who we have to accept as our people when they might have never even lived in Kahnawake. They might have never even had a real connection to here. But yet now we have to split that pot, so to speak, of, you know, healthcare and education funding. There's going to be no additional dollars, to my understanding, to any of the communities. So what Canada did is that they erred in not really looking at how this decision and this change of direction is going to impact the First Nations directly. You know, again, it was a without consultation, unilateral approach. Canada knows what's best for the little Indians, and this is what we're going to do to restore equality. Maybe we're the lone wolf. Maybe other First Nations aren't being vocal enough because they don't understand. Or, again, it just might be that we're being ignored. There have been resolutions passed, to my understanding, in the AFN Assembly that took place last year in Ottawa and again in Regina this summer, talking about this exact issue. Canada needs to stay out of the business of registration and making status Indians and let the First Nations have that jurisdiction, authority, and control as it's laid out in the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. It's our right to determine our people. So to me, I said, I honestly feel like this has been Canada's plan all along. Let's make the haves, the have-nots, fight against each other and let them have all this turmoil and problem. We're only going to have a certain amount of money, and then let the Indians fight it out. It's awful. The situation that we're in is, I can't even begin to explain.
In the summer of 2018, which is only months away, Canada is going to be making cannabis legal. We've talked about this for a long time, and Kahnawà has to deal with this on several fronts as well, whether it's legislation, whether it's getting into business, whether it's prohibition. We're not quite sure yet. We spoke to Chief Gina Deer, who is on the cannabis portfolio, for this very interesting talk.
Well, I would like to start with the two laws that were submitted here. I think, you know, the interest is there in the cannabis industry for a lot of people within the community. They want to see what it's going to look like. Somebody has actually taken the initiative to try and draft some regulations, and we have to look at many different angles other than what individuals are looking at for an industry here. So we're, you know, looking at the safety side. I mean, that's first and foremost, health, safety, and then education. And those are the key components to what we want to see in the law, and that's why we have submitted and drafted our own law. For Quebec, I don't think it's going to be any different. They're going to get a no as an answer for having an extension. They're not the first ones to ask, and it's been no in the past, and I can see it's going to continue to be no. I can understand why they asked. There's a lot to set up and put in place before, you know, this becomes a legalized product. As far as, you know, their distribution model, they're not looking at having many outlets, and they're going to be like SAQ type outlets, and they're still going to be utilizing the postal system for distribution. So it just goes to show you that they're not ready, they're not prepared, and that's why they're asking for the extension.
So are we prepared?
No, we're not. We're like everyone else. But I think what's important is, you know, we're addressing our personal issues within the community right head on. We're consulting with community. We're trying to make community better educated on the situation, because some people think we can just say no. The fact of the matter is there's going to be no legal recourse for us. So we do have to deal with it. It's going to come, and for us to be prepared is the best way. I am optimistic that we will be. This is a type 2 categorization, so I think that's really important. It's very different from a type 1. So when it's regulatory in nature, it falls under a type 2, and that's why it's been categorized as such. And to make it move is a lot faster and a lot easier. The drafting team will be put together, and they will be moving on this. My hope and my wish is that it is ready before July, so that we can put our own law in place and not have the federal law imposed upon us.
Grand Chief Joseph Tukwirda Norton was visited by Chief Darcy Gray of Listugush last week, talking about some of the problems that have been occurring regarding hunting on the Listugush territories. Kahnawà hunters now have been prohibited from hunting over there, and Chief Gusnaho Sky Deer tells us why.
Well, to my understanding, I guess there's always been an unwritten rule when it comes to hunting protocols, and I guess community members, specifically from Kahnawà, have not been following the unwritten rule of getting permission, going hunting with somebody who's actually from the community of Listuguj. And overhunting has become a reported problem. So before things get out of hand and hunters or, the community start taking matters into their own hands and maybe even involving outside authorities and having people be arrested, they sent this letter to us notifying that they wanted to implement this moratorium, and they're looking to the Mohawk Council of Kahnawake to work with them in developing some kind of a protocol. Because they said to us, what if our people just went to Jawarodu or your territory and hunted without, the same thing, permission or going along with somebody, you wouldn't like it. And they're right. So for us, we agreed that we'd work directly with them to find a mutual solution because, we want to have a good relationship. We've had a long-standing relationship with the community, and that I guess moving forward, myself and Joseph Tequirdo Norton have been tasked the assignment of working on this protocol, what it's going to look like. I spoke to Darcy yesterday because I was made aware that there are currently hunters who are up there, and I said, well, when does this moratorium come actually into effect? I said, because we just put the notice out to our community members, and we want to ensure that no one gets punished in the interim. So he said, no, we'll give a few weeks notice because, you have to do your due diligence. The community needs to be informed. And we made an agreement that both of us would come up with some points that could be incorporated into this protocol, and that we're going to sit together at the AFN Assembly come the first week of December and try to get something on paper.